I feel like I have written this intro a bunch of times now, but I can't seem to get it right. So, I'll start off by saying this. If you found yourself here from Bun Oakley's channel, then welcome, and I hope you enjoy this video. Out of all the primers you can play on Soldier, I found myself gravitating naturally towards the airstrike. Everything bar the Liberty launcher has some sort of appeal to it and a reason to play it. It would seem after several hundreds of hours of play I would settle into a playstyle that suits me on Soldier. I remember when I first started putting hours into Soldier, I really gravitated to the Black Box, Contra, and the Half Zatoichi. And for some reason, I always played Suijin with Samurai cosmetics. However, as many people know, this is seen as a newbie/beginner playstyle, which there's nothing wrong with. It's just after a certain point you start realizing there is more to Soldier than just what's on the surface. This mega sustained playstyle is fun, but I started to miss the extra rocket in the chamber and was feeling more confident in my survivability as Soldier. For a while, I played Soldier in a pretty regular way with the stock rocket launcher, switching out secondaries and melees willy-nilly as I saw fit. It was good. What more can I say about the roaming Soldier playstyle that hasn't already been said? But what I enjoyed about Soldier was still evolving, and I was still getting better and better at it. Movement in TF2 takes hundreds, if not thousands of hours to master. And rocket jumping is one of those things. I find rocket jumping really fun to do, even if I'm not great at it. And I often do it to the detriment of my life in game, often jumping into the entire enemy team, plus sentry and exploding before I've even touched the ground. But goddamn is it fun. And it's with this perceived fun that it only makes sense that I would start using a primary to complement that playstyle. No, not the Liberty launcher, don't be ridiculous. I'm talking about the airstrike. The airstrike sounds cool, but what the hell does it do? The airstrike. Minus 15% blast damage from rocket jumps. Increased attack speed and smaller blast radius while blast jumping. Clip size increase on kill. Minus 15% damage penalty and minus 10% explosion radius. Now I know I just read all that out, but what does that really mean in terms of gameplay? And how does it affect the way you play the class? Let's start with that first line of text. Minus 15% blast damage from rocket jumps. Sure, it's nice to have and looks good on paper, but in actuality, doesn't equate to much in-game. From having a quick Google for the TF2 wiki, it would appear that stock rocket launcher does, at max, 46 self-damage per rocket jump. So, when I say that the number goes down to 39 for the airstrike, you begin to see what I'm talking about. Saving yourself 7 extra health every time you jump isn't much, and isn't doing much in the grand scheme of things. Alright, on to the next bit, and this is the main ability of the airstrike and what it's known for. Increased attack speed and smaller blast radius while blast jumping. This is the line of text that promotes you to jump on in there and destroy some fools, all while doing so in midair, giving this weapon its name, the airstrike. Now, this has given some players a misconception about the weapon, which I will go into later on in the video. But, as for what this means for now, just know you're going to be able to take advantage and unleash a big salvo of rockets while flying around the map. And, should you succeed, you are rewarded with the third line of text, which states, clip size increase on kill. Now, What this doesn't tell you is that it caps out at 8 rockets in the clip. But damn, that's still a hell of a lot of rockets, and you'll often find yourself unable to shoot them all in midair, since it's not all maps have the greatest ceiling. Still though, it's a great passive in my opinion. Now on to the downsides. First up is the minus 15% damage penalty, meaning your rockets are now doing 76 instead of 90. Of course, when accounting for damage fall off, it's a hefty price to pay for those upsides, and I can see it turning a lot of people off the airstrike, which is understandable, especially if you've been used to those juicy 90 damage rockets of the stock. Now, what is it really affecting you when you play? Well, I have to say the biggest kicker here is now you'll have to 3-shot Pyres and Doorman, even other soldiers, which in a chaotic game like TF2 can often be the difference between life and death in a split-second decision, and leave you cursing the mire saying, only if I had the stock equipped. And if you didn't think that was bad enough, the minus 10% explosion radius might just turn you off the gun entirely. Now, minus 10% isn't as bad as you think. You can find videos out there showing that for the most part, you still hit the same amount of people as you would, but the feeling you're left with is that it feels a bit harder to hit rockets overall, and especially when you rocket jump, as there's an even further reduction while blast jumping. Now we've got a good grasp on what the airstrike does, this begs the question, what is the best way to play? The way I would describe it is one of playing passive until you've built up a decent sized clip, and then going all in with a soldier bomb. Soldier bombing is the idea of rocket jumping at your opponent and firing rockets as you approach them in midair, often firing one just before you land to ensure maximum damage. You see, for those of you that don't know, Soldier's damage fall off on his rockets is calculated from how close he is to the rocket, not how far the rocket has travelled, meaning the best way to maximize damage on the airstrike and to mitigate damage fall off is to use the soldier bombing tactic. In a strange way, the airstrike promotes being as close to your opponent as possible to make sure you don't screw yourself hard with those measly 40 damage rockets from long range. Unleashing a salvo of rockets your opponent can't avoid in quick succession is the airstrike's strength, and you've got to play to that strength where possible. Now admittedly, that is difficult to do right out of the spawn, as with no extra rockets in the clip, you aren't going to feel the full benefits of the weapon, which is why I suggest strangely normal or even passive soldier playstyle until you've managed to get a couple of kills. I find a great way to get the ball rolling is to be cheeky and steal someone else's kill, as sadly, some days that minus 15% damage could just be the bane of you scoring your own kills to begin with. Now before we move on to the next section, I'm going to throw in this little tip here. The fast firing speed of the airstrike is triggered when you are blast jumping, which, if you haven't caught on yet, means every explosive that causes you to jump is going to trigger this. Which means, in matchups against classes like other soldiers or demomen, you can return fire with a quick burst of damage that many aren't going to be expecting. But that's the airstrike for you. A weapon that requires some time and patience to get going, and to master what exactly it wants from you. But then the next question is, what pairs well with the weapon? What should I be using in the other slots? I think this has to be the first thing I talk about when it comes to secondaries. When you think of the airstrike, you probably think base jumper as well. But let me explain why these two, although they appear like they were made for each other, even coming out in the same update, they do not work well together. Simply put, the base jumper hinders what the airstrike is trying to achieve. Let's break it down. Think back to what I have told you already in this video. The airstrike wants to be close to the enemy to negate damage fall off to the best of its ability. This is done by rocket jumping at your opponent and firing at them as you close the gap. The base jumper stops you from doing this and makes you a sitting duck while doing so. A new player might look at this combo and think, well, I'll be able to make great use of the airstrike passive to fire all the rockets off, and aim well while doing so. But in truth, you will not be finding the success you think you will by doing so. In reality, you'll be damaging the enemy for low amounts of damage due to being too far away, and will probably be picked off by a sniper for hanging in the air too long. If the base jumper ever got reverted to its previous state, perhaps I would give it another look, but until then I would advise you don't use this with the airstrike if you're looking to get the optimal output of the weapon. The battalion's backup, buff banner, and conjurer are all excellent choices to pair with this weapon, and I'd say you're tied best secondary along with another. The backpacks are good secondaries anyway, so they were always going to be a good choice. However, with the airstrike you can get some big high points, which are further heightened when you pop a banner. Buff banner with a full 8 clip can straight up win you some games. Conch helps mitigate the constant rocket jumping damage, while also still doing what it does and helping the team. Same goes for the battalion's backup. Pick this if you really hate sentries. The airstrike is already good at dealing with them, but sometimes we all know it's your team that needs help with the sentries. Plus, the extra health will go to good use. The gunboats are just as good a choice as the backpacks in my opinion. As I've said a bunch of times now in this video, the need for rocket jumps on this weapon is constant, so unsurprisingly the gunboats are really good. They are a good choice for any roaming soldier anyway, but in the case of the airstrike, they complement each other rather well. You just won't have as much team play potential as the backpacks do. I wouldn't recommend the shotguns as they actively work against what you're trying to achieve. Anytime you are getting a kill with a shotgun, you aren't getting more clip size for the airstrike, meaning you are delaying getting the ball rolling on the airstrike's passive, which is just hindering you the longer it goes on. I guess a point could be made that wouldn't it be better for when you face pyros, but when you compare what you would give up from the backpacks and the gunboats, I think it's better to chance the pyro trying to reflect you or just straight up retreating from the situation. Even yet, it's also quite difficult for the pyro to reflect your volley of rockets when you rocket jump. So, even then, the matchup still has some upsides in comparison to just a normal stock rocket launcher. Honestly, just don't bother with the rest of the secondary unlocks. They just don't work that great with the weapon. The only time I would say try them out is when you're having fun, or that's your favourite in that slot and it's a comfort pick of sorts. And finally onto the melees. For the most part, I'd say since this is a utility slot, anything works, so just go for it. But if I'd have to pick which are the good ones out of them, I would say the Market Gardener or the Escape Plan. The Market Gardener just because you are constantly rocket jumping, and it's fun to try and go for one every so often. The Escape Plan is good on regular soldiers, so it's still good here. And with that, we finally reached the end of the video. I know this one took a while to make, but I really wanted to try something new and different, and with a bit more effort to create. I made this video because I thought there was only a couple videos on the airstrike, and I think it could do with some more love. It's not close to being Soldier's best primary, but I find it very fun nonetheless. I could think of a few more points to make in this video. I did initially want to talk about maps that the weapon is good on, but I think what can really make or break a map for the airstrike is simply how high the ceiling is. Either way, thanks for watching the video, and don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment. I'll see you in the next one.